Chris join us. So just to give us a little bit more time with them, hopefully, we'll go ahead and get started. Dave Mitchell, as you have his biography, and he's the head of the Flight Project Directorate at Goddard, and you heard him say some welcoming remarks the other day, so we're glad to have Dave back to share some specifics on project management and systems engineering and some other insights that he can share with you, especially from his vast experience of project management. So Dave, do you want to go ahead and join the group and bring up your charts?
Okay. Hope you guys have had a good couple of days here, and I guess we're bringing it home this afternoon, so I really hope it's been a great experience for everybody. I see like 66 people on the line, so that's great. Really looking forward to getting some feedback, and hopefully you guys have all gotten a lot out of it. So one quick question I had, Walt, was the agenda looked like I was sharing with somebody else. Is that right, or is it back to back here?
Yeah, so we have it set up that you were going to talk for about 15 minutes, and then we'll turn it over to Chris to talk for about 15 minutes, and then we'll use the rest of the time for Q&A and group discussion.
Awesome. Okay. So why don't we jump right into it so I can make sure we have plenty of time for Chris. I want to hear his presentation as well, and then we'll, like Walt said, we'll answer any questions. But feel free as I'm walking through this, if you want to, if something's really got you at that moment while I'm talking, feel free to interrupt any time. Okay, next chart, please. So just real quick, I want to give you a little bit of background, maybe a brief storytelling to give you a sense of a little bit of my history. These are a few things I've done through my career, and more, again, in the context of telling a story and some lessons I've learned from it and applied in subsequent projects and in how I operate today in Flight Projects Directorate. So the first one was something I was working in the 1990s on launch vehicles, actually from Goddard, before that aspect of the engineering development side of launch vehicles was shipped down to KSC, LSP. And in that time, I was working on the Mars Pathfinder program, on the Delta II Mars Pathfinder. And so the preparing for the unexpected aspect was about, I think it was, it was the day before the launch. So I think it was December 4th of 1996, a long time ago. And I'll say my project manager, who I reported to, always pushed me out there to go maybe perhaps a little beyond what I was normally accustomed to, or the traditional job I had at the time was normally doing. It was more roles for the project manager, and in this case, he threw a lot of that stuff that he would do to me, including the activity, day of launch type activity, being on console and working right alongside him. So I learned a lot through those experiences, and also had the opportunity to see how he operated in all the rehearsals and so on and so forth. So make a long story short, it was about a day before launch. He called me. We were down at Cocoa Beach at the time, and he said, "Dave, I'll explain later, but I've got to go home, and good luck with the launch." And just like that, I was put in his seat to conduct the launch activity on his behalf as the project manager. So it was quite the behind the scenes was he had a health incident, and I won't get into the details, but he had to leave. And thankfully, because of what he had put me through leading up, the months leading up, it carried the day for me to really step up and take that on, and it all worked out, thankfully, for the mission. So just again, and so I've taken that into my own lessons for people that work for me. Every way I can push them to go beyond what they're normally accustomed to in their role, try to expand it so they can step up when the unexpected happens. The next one is a mission, another Mars mission. It just happened to be called Maven. In that case, you know, we always talk about at the start of a mission, you know, how much reserves we need and what's the requirements of the center requirements, meeting those requirements. And myself, and I'll say our corporate partner, my counterpart, in this case, Lockheed Martin, we are always looking at ways to create more margin in different ways, create what I say flexibility in INT. it made, again, all the difference in the world when it came down to crunch time. As many of you know, the Mars mission, we have a 20-day opportunity to launch, and then you have to wait 26 months. So it breaks the program, financially and schedule-wise if you miss that tight launch period. So as a result of creating what I say is this flexibility, we had some things that popped up late in flow, including while we're at the launch base, we made a very tough decision with an instrument that was, the data was, it was behaving erratically, I'll say. And had we not created that early flexibility in INT with the schedule, it would have been an easy decision. We would have said, stay the course, let's hope for the best with this instrument, and let's go to launch. In the case we had a little more time, we were able to ship it back to Goddard just about 7 weeks before launch, do some surgery on it and bring it back, and it's still, after all these years, it launched in 2013, and now in 2020 it's operating this particular instrument, a mass spectrometer, magnificently, still providing great science. So that was one. The other part was in the midst of the campaign we had a government shutdown, and there was a lot of other surprises that happened in that last year, which I won't get into here, but the point being, at the front end, earlier ends of the mission, find ways to create flexibility and add margin where you can, so when the unknowns pop up, and they always do, you have that. The last one, real quick, is teaming for success, and that's in my current role as Director of Flight Projects. It is so important how you put teams together, and I'll say in this past year, we've stood up 12 new project offices, and you've got to be very intentional about the people you put in place in the leadership positions and who they put around them. And one part that really starts with me is with the principal investigator that's leading a project. I want to make sure that PI and the project manager I'm proposing, they meet, they click. Everyone is different on both sides of that, and to make sure we have the right match. And I really push getting that right connection before setting this team off on the run. So that's important. Again, I'll save for later for any questions, and I can get into more details. But let's go to the next chart. Real quickly, give you a sense, and I don't know how much of this has been discussed already from a standpoint of Goddard. The really cool thing about this place I've seen through the years is it starts with an idea, with a scientist there on the center. We have the capability to do the design, the formulation, the integration, the test, even the launch when you talk about wall of flight operations, both with sounding rockets, now with orbital, even ones that can get us to the moon. And we also have balloon programs. And then we have a large group both on space science as well as earth science that does operations from Goddard. And then the end part, which is why we do this kind of work in science, is the scientists doing the analysis. So it runs the full gamut from idea to data analysis. Let's go to the next chart. And this is really the one I wanted to talk a moment about, that to give you guys a sense of the work going on in flight projects in my directorate. There's literally, as you can see here, not to count the numbers, but there's over 80 missions we're now managing, both from starting from a pre-phase A all the way through extended phase E. So I'll just say, and across the spectrum of the science mission directorate divisions, and including elements of HEO and STMD. About the only one where flight projects, I'll say, not directly involved with right now is Aero. But there's never a dull moment on there's always something popping, and always something challenging, but that's what makes it great to be, I'll say, working in the job I have, all the different experiences and challenges and working with the teams. It's really a cool place to work. So let's keep going. Next chart. This gives you a sense of the annual portfolio. And currently on an annual basis, we have 4.2 billion coming through the doors in Code 400, and about 2,900 total employees, including the support service contractors, which is a significant number, and then the civil servant employees. And you can see again here the portfolio across the different divisions and different directorates where they come from. There is a significant portion also that comes from our partner organizations. And actually, I think the next chart will show that. We go to the next one. And this gives a sense of SND, HEO, STMD, and then a significant part with externals, with NOAA in particular, a very big part of our portfolio. USGS, particularly with the Landsat missions, and then elements of Department of Defense, some open and some classified. Next chart. Just a chart to give you a sense through the years, the history with so many different missions that we've been a part of. Very, very proud of the history we've had here. Next chart. So real quick, some of the challenges in managing flight projects. Many are very obvious, others, but I just put them all in there for completeness. But make no mistake about it, all best laid plans, I think it's a military quote, they do well until first contact with the enemy. And not that any of these challenges are enemies, but I'm just saying you could put out the best plan. You better have the reserves to deal with the unknowns that come up. And listing here many of the common challenges, budgets. And when I say budgets, it's more than just the full amount you need, but the time, the phasing of those budgets is so critical. If you could have all the money in the world in the 50th year of execution, it doesn't help you if you don't have proper funding in the earlier phases. Schedule, and just one example already noted, was meeting those planetary windows. Changing requirements, that's a killer. It can be a killer. To be able to keep stability with your requirements and not allow for the creep, the requirements creep that is critical. Heritage hardware systems and people, and I say heritage people. Of the 8 instruments we flew on Maven, the one that was going to be a slam dunk, there was an element that was built in France that had been built there for decades, and it was a slam dunk until after the fact. Turns out the person that had done it all those years retired, and the secret sauce was not in the documentation, it was in his head. And we struggled mightily. It was the 7th of the 8 instruments that finally made it to the observatory. So there's those aspects of it. Complex design, stating the obvious there. Let's keep going. And these are, some of the other things we have to deal with: facilities and conflict issues. I won't read the words here. Technical hardware issues, procurement delays, stakeholders, outside partnerships, launch vehicle schedule, and mishap and on-orbit events. In the lower right, you can see a big mishap there. But anybody that's building hardware, including at the Goddard Space Flight Center, has had these moments. And they're really unfortunate. It's how y'all pick yourselves up and keep moving forward after something bad happens. So, and in the lower left, you'll see this is regarding the international partnership. In this case, it's ExoMars, including our MoMA mass spectrometer built at Goddard. In this case, for different reasons, we had to slip, or they had to slip out of the Mars opportunity that was going to be this year and wait for 26 months. So we're part of that ride. So our mass spectrometer waits on Earth as well. Let's go to the next chart. And then again, maybe we'll take some of this in the form of questions as they come up. But through the years, I've pulled together lessons, and here's some high-level things. Some you don't have control over sometimes. Some you might have some influence. And some you can really take a hard line on what you can do about it. Stability of leadership. Again, we could talk about it when we get there. Push to get the frontline managers in the project office that have really strong hardware development experience has been what I've gone to. What I mean by that is there's different ways you can go about getting those people, and those people being, and I've always, if you looked at every project I've worked on, most of the people aren't the same. So it's not my same group that goes from project to project. I want to get different ideas, different people, and diversity of people, and it's always been that way. I think that makes it makes a project tick in a great way. So in one case, I'll just say very specifically, I knew of somebody that was really good. I'd never worked with him, but he wasn't going to be available for 4 more months because he was finishing the Hubble servicing mission. So rather than go find somebody else, I asked my deputy project manager, can you wear 2 hats for 4 months, be the DPM as well as the observatory manager? And he took that on so that when that mission launched, we could bring him over. Maintain a sense of urgency throughout the life cycle of a project, and it doesn't have to be a planetary launch date. And there's a lot of ways we did that. And I know it's obvious, maybe, the communications aspect. It's so critical. Keep your principal investigator, the partner institutions, headquarters, program office, in lockstep, and we did it in a lot of different ways. Also, if you have a mission that's being developed mostly out of house, you got to talk to the team that you're bringing on. Can you be the road warriors? Because that's what you need. That's what I needed. I'm all about family and everything like that, but sometimes, for a particular project, you have to get a different set of people that can hit the road, or maybe have a subset that is focused in-house. But, keep that in mind depending on what type of project it is. And transparency and openness is critical. And so you got to create that environment as the leader of that organization. The fear of speaking up, we've all, I'm sure, read the CAVE report, but it's more than that. It's a lot of other things that can happen that seep into a project, and you need that kind of feeling that anything can be brought up. You don't want to find out days before the launch or after the launch something was nagging at somebody and they didn't bring it up. So you got to build that culture. Let's go to the next one. Fight for cost reserves at the outset of the mission. And what do I mean by that? Yeah, there's a lot of times we flat don't have the money, but sometimes there's an opportunity. In our case, we did create more reserves by, we actually did descope a couple of instruments to create more reserves. So there is, sometimes you have that in your control, sometimes you don't. Let's see. Again, some of these are obvious, tracking of metrics, and that is so critical. If you can't really see what's going on there, you can't make important decisions early on. Roles and responsibilities are critical and need to be communicated to the entire team. I discussed requirements creep earlier. Last one there, find opportunities to team build at frequent opportunities and develop lessons learned along the way. Don't get to launch and after launch, we have to collect lessons learned. Half the people have already moved on to the next project. And it's not only the lessons learned for the next mission, it's for when you're in the midst of it. And so if we go to the next chart, I'll say a little more about that. This was our leadership team, and they were spread from across the country. And this happened to be when we were going from Phase C to Phase D. And so I was very intentional that we bring the project together during every phase transition to look at how do we operate in this last phase? How do we need to change because we are going into a different phase? Phase C, or going into Phase D, you're in the full integration and test and running to launch. And sometimes you have different leaders in that group that now need to step up because of the phase we're going into. And also, what went well? What didn't go so well? What can we tweak now? Not let it go and just fester for the rest of the mission. So we did this during every phase. And I highly encourage that for all our projects. Last chart, I think, maybe. Let's go to the next one. And this is just kind of this was such a big event in my life, and it showed all the teams that were involved here on the night of Mars orbit insertion. And this is what we all hope to get to, where all those years of work, and it pays off with a successful mission in this case, to Mars. In the lower left there, you can see in the Goddard Visitor Center box there in the front row is Charlie Bolden, so he came out for that. And a lot of us were out in Denver at the Ops Center, but it was quite a moment. I think that's the last chart. Let's go one. Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over now to our next speaker, and thank you.
All right. Excellent, Dave. That'll be good. And we'll be back in a little bit for the question and answer. Up next is Chris Singer. Again, you have Chris's biography, and looking forward to what Chris has. So, Chris, you want to bring up your slides?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Bob, and thank Dave. That was a great set of insights. And what a great bunch of speakers you've already had. I got to listen to several of them, and Lisa did a great job of teeing up some of the things that I'm going to talk about personally, because can you see my slides first of all?
Yes, can see them fine.
Great. So I'm going to give a quick story, really about where we are as a community of practice that I've noticed that has changed and evolved over our careers, and what an honor it is for us to get to do what we get to do. Right, we get to really create things that other people have dreamed about all of their lives. If you can't get excited about your job every day, go find something else, because this is what it's all about. And I had the great privilege to get to work on Space Shuttle for a long time. I worked on other programs and projects, but this is where I got to cut my teeth, which was right on the propulsion system, specifically the main engines and the external tank. And those had a lot of lessons to teach, as we found out from a development experience, because we were creating stuff that never had been done before, right? This is what NASA's known for. This is what we're about. And when you're doing stuff that hasn't been done before, you get an opportunity to learn. Sometimes we get a little gift that I learned later was called a failure. And when I say failure, you might see the engine laying down there on the lower right, as opposed to where it was supposed to be up in the test stand. And I had a boss, he said, one good failure is worth 1,000 successes. And he was right. And this is really where we as engineers get to understand what we don't, when we have a failure. And of course, we never go in planning to have a failure. But when we have a failure, it is where we find out the uncertainties that are in our designs, in our understanding, and sometimes in our head in a different way. It also points to the importance, and we've already heard this a couple of times, of getting a schedule and having some urgency. We hear a lot, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but there's a lot of hand-wringing around schedule pressure. Well, there's a difference between schedule pressure and schedule urgency. We got to have schedules. Schedules matter, and it's really important. And we've been able and successful in those years from early shuttle in the 80s to today, where we've been able to evolve and grow a community, not just large contractors, but a lot of smaller contracts. And through the, recently we just launched the first commercial cruise. That was a dream about 12, 15 years in the making. And now with HLS, Lisa talked about, we've got an opportunity to even expand that kind of capability and continue to grow the communities. I've observed, and this became kind of a passion in the last part of my career, which was, in all we learned, we created computing tools, we had new software, we had we captured all kinds of lessons learned. We brought in new manufacturing capabilities,